Schuyler had a surprise. He had picked up a couple extra hits of acid and was turning everybody on to an extra half a hit to get them going again. Dusk was coming. We smoked a couple bowls to let it all kick in. Moods were changing. I think we were peaking again and very wasted, but some from the alcohol rush also. Moon was still taking pictures while he could. We took some beautiful shots of the old bridge and the scenery around us. Moon had me take a series of pictures, giving the impression that he was jumping from a steep cliff along the creek banks. The first shot showed him jumping off what appeared to be a high cliff. The second shot showed him apparently in mid-flight, and the last shot showed him landing on the ground by the creek. When I tried this illusion on a different section of a cliff, the sandstone ledge broke off under my jumping weight and sent me sprawling to the ground on my ass a couple feet away, much to the delight and laughter of everyone. The town drunk had had enough and stumbled back to sit in the car where the beer was, alone in the dark, tripping on the reflection of himself in the window, which wasn't real, and yet it was there. I still wasn't drinking. I don't know if Moon was or not. The other three were catching a beer buzz on top of the acid and pot. Schuyler said a cave existed nearby along the Cliff Creek banks, and he knew where it was. He continued to tell us that he and Bruce had discovered it in a rainstorm after being led to it by a strange force. That was really weird because early in the year, during a rainstorm, I had felt compelled to pull over my car, and I led Bruce to a similar, if not the same, cave. We were all laughing. I wanted to ask him more about it, but Darren was bugging him to lead us to it, and Bob was egging us on. Schuyler said he didn't think we had enough personal power to reach the cave safely on this fucked up day, because we would have to enter a power where the world ruled our auras to make the trip. Bullshit, Bob said. I knew what he was talking about. I thought only I knew about the cave. I remember Bruce and I driving around during a rainstorm. Bruce was telling me to follow my instincts and live. I pulled over at Monday's Bridge, and in a lost and confused state, I led us to a small cave indentation big enough for the two of us to sit in it and get out of this unholy thunderstorm. We figured when the creek was high, the cave was probably underwater, but when the water was low, you could sit in it. Was the creek high or low now? I didn't know, I didn't care, and what did it matter? The power of the cave is here tonight, Schuyler said, but the power of the fog will rule the night, my friends. Darren and I were sitting on the grass, looking over the cliff's edge, meditating, not saying a word. Then he farted loudly, and we all burst out laughing. Bob, Moon, and Sky were drinking beer, talking loudly, and catching a buzz from the beer. We were on the downside of a good acid high. I popped open my first beer. I felt as if I were in a fog. I was drifting in and out. We were talking about the cave still. To those who do not believe, no proof can be given. To the drunks with no link to the supernatural, in this time and space and alternate dimensions, now, blah, blah, blah is all I could think, all I could feel. I tried to kick back and relax and ride the waves of time. The sun was at last vanishing into the night. The dark side of bladder acid was upon us. We figured we had better use up our last roll of film and finish our beers and say good night to the day that brought the acid rush of night, madness. Those guys took off and we said we'd meet them later. The kids from the Franklin area are weird enough, Moon told me, but these guys from Rochelle are fucking nuts. We both laughed and I filled up a bowl for the cruise into town. We took the long way around. We pulled into Main Street and it was eerily deserted except for the glaring street lights misted by a hint of fog. It was a night right out of a horror flick, I thought. I was just being paranoid, but even Moon said everything seemed changed, different. We parked right on the street across from Chuck Ives' drugstore and cranked up his car stereo to jam. It was as if we were the only people alive. It was getting late by now. We sat and waited. Bob's car pulled into the empty grocery store parking lot and parked back farther towards the darkness. Moon and I walked across the street to the pop machine and we each got a can. "Let's check it out, man," I said. We walked over to see what was going on. Of course, they were sitting there drinking beer and smoking pot. "Cool," Moon said. Pretty soon, the two girls who had been tripping with us pulled into the parking lot and parked right next to us. "Hey, what's going on?" Ruby shouted. She was driving. Goldie got out of the passenger side. "Geez, what a fucking rush," she exclaimed. Ruby got out and joined us. We were all together again. "Goldie was freaking out at the park, man," Ruby said. "Yeah, you fucker." She was looking right at me and continued, "You knew we had never tried acid before and you tried to freak us both out by giving us a whole hit of acid." "Sorry about that," I said, "but I didn't know it would be this fucking good." We all laughed. "Oh man," Ruby said. "First we hit Dixon and somehow made it through a fast food place. We pulled over in a park to eat our food, but we couldn't eat anything. Their burgers tasted like shit," Goldie said. "We threw them away." Ruby went on. "We tripped out, just sitting there laughing our asses off. We couldn't even get out of the car or anything. We had to roll out of the car onto the ground to get out." "No shit," Goldie responded. "We couldn't walk. We had to roll on the grass. We were laughing so hard. There were kids and parents everywhere staring at us." Goldie started up again after we all had a good laugh. "Anyway, I made it to the swing set to sit down and smoke a cigarette, but the next thing I knew I was swinging back and forth, back and forth. I blacked out for a while. I was just flying. And when I did snap out of it, there was Ruby rubbing her back on a nearby tree like a big old bear. "Again?" I said, and we all laughed. "Oh man," Ruby said, "I was tripping my ass off."